So, very warm welcome to all of you. It is indeed my privilege to be here to speak to all of you because I think today is going to be a learning session for me also. I always admire entrepreneurs who are setting up a startup, and maybe that's my dream also someday to do something like all you brave people are doing. I'm happy to be here to share with you some of the thoughts which I have. And the way I have done the agenda for today is that I have got three parts. We will talk about organization structure, recruitment, and compensation. What we'll do is after each of the parts, we will take a Q&A, and because I would like to hear from you all how it is going, what questions you have, and then we move on. And then in the end, we'll do an overall Q&A. So please keep your questions ready whenever we open the session for questions. And with that, I would like to start. So I need to
Chandra ma'am, can
share
you
this.
please use the full screen mode option?
Yeah, that's what I was trying, but it is not. Now is better.
No,
I have just shared it full screen. Your screen sharing is paused. What does it say? Why does it say that? Can you see it now?
it's still the same.
Chandra, I think so. You will have to remove that enable editing.
Please move the screen away from the shared application. Why does it say that?
There is a button called enable editing. Click on
Yeah,
that and
click
then
on
go
that.
for PowerPoint presentation.
On the top page, you will have a yellow bar. In
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
enable editing is there. Just click on enable editing.
No, I'm not getting that bar. I don't know why
Same.
I'm not getting that bar. What do I do?
This is also okay, ma'am. Then we'll proceed, ma'am.
Stop share. Then shall I share again?
Reshare it.
What about now?
No.
There is a yellow bar at the top.
Yeah, there is. It says your screen sharing is paused.
Ma'am, on the screen just above the agenda, there is resume slideshow. If you can just click on that.
Resume share is there.
Yeah.
Can you see now?
No, it's still
You can
same.
see your screen, but you're not able to see in the form of full presentation.
Now?
No.
If the font size is this much, I think we should go ahead with this. Not a issue.
Yeah,
Because
this font size is big. I'm sorry that why this is.
it's fine. Still,
Huh?
Yeah, it is visible, ma'am. No worries. We'll proceed with this.
Okay, okay, fine. Sorry, sorry. Okay. Okay, fine. So if we see today, how do I remove these? Yeah. Okay. So, as you may be knowing, India today stands in the third place as the largest tech startups in the world, which is expected to witness a year-on-year growth of around 12 to 15%. So, you are in very good company, and India is really growing in their startup phase. Startups in the country have been able to create an estimated 40,000 new jobs over the year. So, that's a lot of jobs that all of you are creating. And 95% of entrepreneurs are at least holding a bachelor's degree. Some of them, of course, are mavericks. They are college dropouts as well. Government of India is undertaking the value of working with disruptive innovators across the value chain and using their innovations to improve public service delivery. So over 26 states in the country have startup policy. So this is just to give you an idea of, you know, the kind of work that is happening in the ecology. Now, why do startups succeed? What are some of the ingredients that go into successful startups? First of all, as you know, you have to have the right product, which has to be in the right market at the right time. That's very important. Secondly, you should be able to manage the culture within the organization, and you need to have the proper organization structure, which will help your startup to accelerate. So, we are going to talk about some of these things today. So, when we come to organization structures, there's one saying here from one of the founders of a startup saying, your first 10 employees you have to choose very carefully, as they are going to determine the next 100 who are going to join you. What is an organization structure? An organization structure is basically what are the various roles and responsibilities which are there in your organization. So, organization structure gives clarity on roles and responsibilities. It also creates a clear communication channel. Who has to talk to whom, for what reason? And of course, for the people who are joining your organization, it will mean that they have some clarity in terms of what is their career growth, what can they look for when they join your organization. That's why an organization structure is very important.
Chandra
Just,
ma'am,
yes.
sorry to interrupt. So the slides are not working here. I'll be sharing the slide through my system, and you can just
Yeah, yeah,
go.
yeah. Okay, done.
Sorry for the
No
interruption.
problem. So do I have to then exit this one?
No, 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 no. Yeah, I think we are on this slide, ma'am, right?
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay.
Okay, so now on, I'll just say next so that then you can move it. Sorry for that inconvenience. Huh?
No, no worries, ma'am.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so next slide. Yeah, like I said that, it's the first 10 employees we have to choose very carefully as they determine the next 100. Next. As I was saying, the importance of organization structure is basically it gives you clarity on roles and responsibilities. What we need to do. Anybody who joins your organization will want to know what is the job I have to do. The structure gives that clarity, as well as it creates the clear communication channel between people, and it also helps people to realize okay what level they will grow into. So that's also very important for people who join an organization. Next slide. So this is a typical organization structure. There will be somebody who is at the top, who is the founder, you can say. Then there can be a CEO. I'm not saying all organizations will be like this. This is just an idea of how organization structure should be. They are really boxes. So there is a CEO and there will be a CTO. Now, a CTO role is more important when you have a tech startup. So a tech startup is where a lot of the work is done using technology, and you'll have more evolved and deeper technology team. Otherwise, you can have a CEO who is multitasking. Then you can have maybe a finance head. Then you can have an operations head, and the other roles can be a part of these various roles also. Yeah, next slide. Okay, now we come to types of organization designs. Organization designs can be of various types. What we call functional, then there can be divisional, there can be matrix, and there can be flat. Now, what is a functional organization? A functional organization is, no, don't change the slide. Thank you. A functional organization is basically when persons are doing the work in their function. What do we call a function? Like finance will be one function, marketing and sales will be one function. Let's say IT or technology will be one function, HR will be one function, supply chain will be one function. So when organization is divided into these various roles, then it is called a functional organization. Now, what is a divisional organization? A divisional organization is when you create like profit centers. Suppose you have various products, let's say, and more than one product, and you want to create divisions by product wise. You can do that. Or you want to sell one product, but you want to kind of make it more geographical. So then you make it geographical based divisions. What happens in a divisional setup is within the division also the various functions are represented. So you will have a regional where you will have a regional, let's say somebody looking after finance there, somebody doing marketing there, somebody who's overall head of operations there. So this is divisional. The other is matrix. It becomes very complicated and maybe it may not be the right organization for a startup. What happens in a matrix is that a person is there, his role is he works with the division and he's responsible for the divisional profit and loss, as well as he's responsible to report to some corporate where there is a finance person or there is a HR or a supply chain or an IT person. So the person has multiple reporting. It can be very complex for a startup and may not be really advisable. The last one, the fourth one, is a flatter structure. The flatter structure, I think, is more workable for a startup where you simply have the owner or the CEO and you have two, three important roles directly reporting to him or her. And then as you go next level, again, it is a flatter structure. So these are very flat, it is non-hierarchical. There are not too many levels in such an organization. So these are the four main types of organizations. Okay, next slide. Okay, now what are the things we need to keep in mind when we are setting up an organization, especially depending on the various stages of the startup. Now, when the startup has, let's say, less than 21 employees, what happens is that cost is the biggest driver. As all of you know, that in a startup, cash you have to always conserve. So what happens is when you have less than 21 employees, you put everyone on multiple jobs. So a person can have more than one or two responsibilities. If he is the chief operating officer, he can be maybe in charge of HR also, can be in charge of IT also, supply chain also. So like that, you can have one person doing multiple roles. There's no clear role and responsibility. So with less than 21 employees, you can work with, where there is a little bit of not so much well-defined lines between the roles. And the main driver, as I said, in such a situation is the cost optimization. You don't want to increase your cost of employees. Okay, thank you. Next slide. Okay, now when we come to stage 2, which is about 21 to 50 employees, our main driver becomes efficiency. We want to drive and become a very efficient organization. So it becomes, we go in for a flatter organization. We don't want too many levels and hierarchies. We have flexibility, innovation, and risk taking, which are very much needed in a startup. So what happens is that we have clear roles and responsibilities. At this stage, we need to start writing down what should be our roles and responsibilities. So a little bit of the job description writing you will have to do at this stage. Okay, next slide. Now, once you become a large organization and you have more than 50 employees, obviously you'll have to become more formal in your way you work so that communication channels become more formal. Then you can think which one works for you. You can become functional or divisional or a matrix structure or a network or a cluster kind of the structures. There will be more clearer reporting and approval mechanisms. And the main driver will be how do we all together face the competition in the marketplace. So these are the three stages where you will have to start looking at little different organization structures. Okay, next slide. Now, when we talk about roles, there's a very important aspect of organization roles. We have to be cautious about the changing role of generalist and the changing role of the founder. These are two very important aspects which I want to take you through. It's very important. I think most of you are founders, but you have to realize that at what stage, what are your core skills, and at what stage you really need to maybe delegate and do something different and see what you, how the role, how your own role in the organization is changing. Sometimes the founders, they refuse to, change their role even when the organization has grown. Then it can become a hindrance. The second point is that when you start initially and you hire, you will be mostly hiring generalists. Like I said, you're looking at people who can do more than one role. So what happens is they become generalists. They are not so much specialists. But then after some time, as your organization matures, these specialists only have to move into, sorry, these generalists have to move into more specialist kind of roles. Somebody who may have joined as, taking more than one role, he or she may have to become a supply chain head or a finance head or a HR head. Then you'll have a challenge. So you need to take people who can be generalists, but at the same time, they need to have one area of specialization also. So that as your organization grows, they can also grow into those roles. Okay, next channel. Yeah, okay. So now just to give you an example of one of the case studies, Zappos, I think all of you know, is a very successful retailer who has, of course, recently been acquired by Amazon. So they had one concept of organization structure called holacracy, where they are saying is that each person is independent or each team is independent. They don't have any bosses there, they don't have any managers. Then teams take their own decisions. So they have a flexible organization structure which gives more autonomy to teams and individuals and makes decision making much faster. So this has really helped the organization to grow. Okay, next slide. So, okay, what I will do now is I will pause here on the module of organization structures and roles and responsibilities. And I would like to take any questions that you all have. Can we, Kapil, open it for some questions, or is there a chat box where people can write some questions?
Yeah, sure. So if any of the participants is having any kind of questions, so we'll be taking it here.
Yeah,
Otherwise, we can take it at the end of the session
yeah,
also.
that's right. That's right. I think there was somebody who was speaking. I think some mic must have been on.
So any questions from the participants? No, I think, ma'am, we will proceed, and at the end of the session, we'll take the Q&As.
Okay, okay, fine, fine. Okay, good. Sounds good. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. So after giving you an overview on organization structures, we will now delve into recruitment. I think this is the most important thing for all of you in startup is that how whom you are recruiting. That becomes the key to the success of your organization. Okay, next slide. So this is, a quote from Mr. Dharmesh Shah, who is also a very famous founder of various different startups. And he says that in order to get the best people, you have to help them to find you. This is particularly challenging because many of the best people are not looking for jobs. So I think as all of you as startup leaders, this is the biggest challenge for you. Where to get the people from? How do you reach out to the right people? Okay, next slide. Okay. So basically it says here 23% fail because it is not the right team. 23% of startups fail because the right team is not there. So spotting the right talent is very important. And here you have to think like a camel, not a unicorn. That means the camel is the person who does the hard work, so you need people who are, really going to get into the nitty gritty and do the hard work, and not the people who, believe that they are in a unicorn from day one. So that should be the kind of people you should be hiring. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, now hiring, there are very many options. Like you can have a full in-house team. So all of these positions you hire, or you can do partial outsourcing. So, you either have them in India, abroad. You can do partial staff augmentation, or you can do complete outsourcing. You can outsource your complete IT, for example. So you can have a development team, dedicated development team. So today hiring has many options, and you have to think what is right for you at the stage of your company with the costs that are involved, etc. So those are the challenges in hiring. Next slide, please. Okay, now when we come to the process of hiring, I think entrepreneurs like you need to spend a lot of time in the hiring process. Otherwise, if you hire the wrong person, then not only will you'll have to pay the consequences, because it will affect your finances, as well as if somebody is not able to perform, it will affect your finances, as well as team morale, because no team likes to have somebody who is not performing, in their team. So the various steps of a hiring process, I just wanted to just lay it out for you. One is the screening written applications, then doing some practical tests, like for what you are hiring them, whether they are capable to do that. You conduct some in-person interviews. Then you have to make a decision, and the decision should be mainly around culture fit. Are their values aligned to you and your company? That's very important, because if you get the wrong people, it will be difficult for you. Practical fit. Do they really fit in terms of travel time, salary expectations, etc.? Of course, skills fit, as we have seen, that how well are they in the skills that you are looking for. And always remember that you have to communicate also with the unsuccessful applicants, because this is about employer branding, and you don't want them to not have a good word for you when they go out. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so how do we find the best talent? There are three models for that which companies are using. One is the STAR model, then you have the engineering model, and you have the commitment model. Now, what happens in a STAR model is that you hire the brightest, driven people with less focus on specific skills. So you really, hire people for the intelligence, for, what they bring in on the table. Engineering model is more, you are hiring people for the specific skills that they have. So you're focusing on result oriented people who are able to flourish under pressure and who can give you exactly what you're looking for. Then the third model is commitment model, where you prioritize loyalty in the company, as people are hired for culture alignment and passion for the cause. And this, I think, mostly we do at the startup. In the beginning, we hire, our colleagues or friends who are very much committed to our vision, who may have worked with us in the past. And these are the kind of people we will hire initially. This gives you a model of how you want to go about hiring. Okay, next slide. Okay, now there are some tips to hiring. One is, of course, hire people who will align to your vision. So, not people with who are not agreeing with you. Hire essential staff when you can pay finance 1 year of pay. So basically, obviously 1 year of pay you will have to pay from your own resources. So then you should hire only the minimum people that you need. And of course, when you are hiring somebody, you have to think 2, 3, 5 years down the line, how this person will grow. Does the person have potential to grow, or is he only good for the current job? So search for potential and not just experience. And then, of course, you have to seek culture fit. That is how they fit in, what are their values, beliefs, do they really share your own vision, how much they have the buy-in for what you are doing, etc. So these are the main hiring tips which are there for you. Yes, next slide. Today, of course, there are many ways to hire, and I'm sure that you don't have to feel demotivated that, maybe I don't have the money to hire the talent, etc., etc. Today, there are enough and more opportunities. There are people who are interested in doing part-time work, so you can get them. You can do job sharing. For example, one job you have, you can get more than one person to do that job for you. Telecommuting, there are many stay-at-home moms and dads who are happy to work and contribute from home. Employees who want flexi time, if you can give them flexi time, they'll be happy to work for you. For temporary work which you see is of a temporary nature, and it is not going to be needed on a continuing basis, you can as well take people on temporary work. Similarly, casual, you just call them in only for the work that is to be done and then they leave. Similarly, seasonal work, if like we see all the retail, Diwali, Dasra, they hire, and then after that, when the load goes off, then they don't need so many people. There are many expert consultants out there. You may need some very typical work to be done in IT or other areas. There are many consultants out there whom you can use. There is, of course, the self-employment, freelancers. Then, of course, colleges. Colleges can be a great source for you to get good people. Today, colleges are all having internship programs. You can hire them. Engineering colleges, they have apprenticeship program. You can use the apprenticeship program because you get good people at very low costs. Similarly, there are some people who want to work with you because it's a part of their fellowship program or their PhD programs. So what I'm trying to say in this slide is that you don't have to feel disheartened that, I don't have enough money, I cannot have the experts working for me. There are enough and more, ways where how you can hire good people and, get people to work with you. Okay, next slide, please. Now, very important that you have to, when you are in the market for hiring, you have to focus on building a strong employer brand. Now, what is an employer brand? An employer brand means when an external candidate is coming to you, he should think that what is it that the company is standing for? Who is this company I am hiring for? So it's very important for you to set up a strong employer brand. And initially, since you're the startup, obviously you are the brand of the company. So, you have to start building your brand from day one. You have to ensure that, the employees who are coming in, they have a good word to say for you. You need to have online presence and talk about your achievements online. You can speak at events and networking, so that your company gets the kind of space that it needs. Sorry. And also, very importantly, you can use an employee referral program. Employee referral programs are a very good tool to hire people. I'm sorry, because that will give you, good people will join you who are known to the people, and attrition is also less. Because one of the biggest issues of any, startup is how to reduce employee attrition. So these are the ways where you can bring down attrition. Sorry. Okay, since we have decided to take the Q&A later on, I think let me move on to the next section. So the next section is on compensation and benefits. I think this must be in the top of your mind that what kind of compensation and benefits should I offer in a startup? So let's look at this. Yeah, next slide. This is very important. Make sure you're hiring talent with realistic expectations for your company's stage, because salary and equity expectations are often a valuable signal here and can select for the right or wrong people. So you have to see what kind of person you are hiring, because does the person want fixed salary, or is he okay to take equity, and what is his understanding of salary versus equity. So these are very important things for you to keep in mind when you are talking salary to a new hire. Okay, next slide. Now what we'll do here is let's talk about the context of a startup. What is the context of a startup? There is less manpower. Each person is, kind of has to pull their weight, and there's no luxury of having too many people. There are less enabled processes. There are not too many processes also that, are there. Your investors will expect steady returns. So they do not want a high cost structure. You are also need to be interested in preserving cash. And also you want the company not to close down. So sustainability is also very important. So keeping all this context in mind, you have to think about your compensation practices. Okay, next slide, please. So what happens is that the difference between success and failure is how well you retain your top performing talent. So that is the challenge, I think, facing all of you as startup organizations. And let us see how best we can do that. Okay, next slide. Now I want to talk about basics of compensation. What are the components of compensation we have? We have mainly base pay, or what we call as fixed salary. Then we have variable pay, which is mainly performance bonus. And then there is equity. Now, if we go to the next slide, we talk about base pay. Okay. What does base pay comprise of? Base pay comprises of your basic salary or your fixed salary, as well as your HRA. Here, I'm not including all the government, like, for example, certain things as per regulation, you have to pay provident fund, etc. That is in addition to this. Now, what happens is that in a startup, the biggest challenge you'll have is, what is the market rate we are talking about? Okay, what do you offer as base pay to somebody? Okay, so that is very important, because base pay means, are you going to pay as per the market? Because in a startup, you cannot pay as per the market. You will always pay a little below the market. So that is one challenge with base pay. The other challenge with base pay is that it becomes a fixed remuneration. That means whether your company is doing well or not, this much pay you will definitely have to pay to the individuals. So keep that in mind, and ideally your entire compensation basket base pay should not be more than 50%. So we need to keep a fixed compensation of 50%, and then the remaining 50% should be variable. Okay, next slide, please. Now, when we come to variable pay, mainly we will talk about performance bonus. Now, there are many things you can do with the performance bonus. You can link it to the various, aspects of yours, and it can be many things. Like if you are looking at, you want to link it with the growth of your company, you can do that. Or you want to link it with what kind of profit you have made, you can do that. You want to link it with what kind of, let's say, revenues you have generated, you can do that. So it all depends on the performance of the company. And you may want to put performance of the individual also, because you want to differentiate between the performers and the non-performers. And you have the option to give monthly, quarterly, or yearly performance bonus. And as I said, you should link it to the performance metrics on the job. So this is the important thing about performance bonus. Actually, performance bonus should be able to clearly communicate to employees how our company is doing. What have we done well? How we are doing? What kind of money have we made, which is available for distribution? Okay, next slide. Then we come to the most important, which is equity. Now, as you know, most employees will join you thinking that there is hope for equity at the end of a particular period. Now, this is very important for startup. In fact, this is one of the ways in which you will attract good talent to join you. But of course, equity has a lot of challenges because depends how much can you really dilute, because obviously your investor is also expecting equity and return on equity. He or she will not let you dilute much of the equity. So that is one of the challenge, as well as your ESOP vehicle, employee stock option vehicle, needs to be very well designed. But the very options, you can always use a consultant to design a good ESOP for you. You can actually give shares, or you can give shadow shares, in the sense you can just give the cash against those shares. Then, of course, all have a vesting period. There's an exercise period. That is, you may not give all the shares in one go. You can give it over a period of 4 years. You can see the eligibility. And typically, what happens is that there's a people who are joining in the first instance, they get a certain level of ESOPs. The second round of people may get a little different, and the third round may be getting a little different. So these are some of the challenges in. The only thing about compensation you must always remember is that everybody comes to know everybody's compensation. You may want to keep it as confidential as you want, but that does not happen. So, keeping that in mind, please ensure that you are having a fair compensation, in the sense that people who are at the same level, same doing the same kind of job, they should be getting the same kind of salaries. Otherwise, people are going to be very frustrated and they are going to leave your organization, and they are not even going to be good brand ambassadors for your organization. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, so in addition to compensation, you can provide additional benefits. What do these additional benefits do? They provide motivation, like you can give gifts and all that. There's a scope for personalizing the benefits depending on a person. If he's young, he wants more vacation. If somebody is having a family, they want to have more child care leave. So these kind of things you can then make it very personalized for the employee. Benefits, what happens is that you can keep them low cost. They are not of a fixed nature, but they help in employee attraction and retention. In the next slide, we will see some of the benefits which are available. Okay, next slide. Yeah, some of the benefits you must have, because they are really going to prove that, you are a good employer. One is medical insurance. You can have a co-pay kind of a thing where you give some part and the employee gives certain part. A personal accident insurance cover, of course, for all employees. Then you can give a term life insurance, which is also something co-pay. Employee gives 50%, you can give 50%. So what happens in these cases is they kind of attract people to you and they create a certain kind of stickiness, so that then they stay with your organization. Next slide, please. So these are some of the things I wanted to just share, that, these are good to have, but you have to see whether, you can afford it. For example, free lunch, free gym membership, vacation leaves. Many companies do all these things. Student loan assistance, employee discounts, etc. Sabbaticals. So there's a long list of things that you can do, as a type of benefits or perks for employees to keep them motivated. Okay, next slide, please. So yeah, I'll end this saying good luck for your new startup. And now I will open for questions, because questions will really help me, to kind of understand where you are and what more I can do. So thank you, and Kapil, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. So, ma'am, a question from my side first.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
typically, we have seen that startups usually have a team size of 10 to 12 people.
Hmm.
So, is it important to have someone at a HR position in a startup team?
No, it is not needed. It is not needed because it will add to your cost. What you can do, see, in a startup team, typically what I see is that you're going to have the CEO or founder. who is, going to be more, let's say, strategy and funding and things like that. And
Yeah.
then you can have a chief operating officer. The chief operating officer can be more responsible for the delivery. And typically, these should be the one or two very senior roles.
Yeah.
He can be responsible for HR, and you're going to have a startup with around 10, 12 people. I don't think you need really a full-time HR person. But
Right.
as long as that person can double hat, it will depend on, the scope of the work involved.
Sure. Yeah.
Mm.
Thank you.
And
So from the participants, you can ask questions directly to Chandra ma'am by unmuting your mic.
I have a question, madam. You
yes.
have mentioned a term called staff augmentation. Is it improving the skill sets? Are you referring to?
No, no. Staff augmentation means adding the staff,
Acha, acha, just
i-
adding the staff numbers.
increasing manpower. Yes, yes,
Okay, okay.
yes.
Hmm. Okay, I was confusing that with like a particular staff needs certain skill set training to the
No, no,
job
no,
profile.
no. In fact, that part I didn't. I mean, you see, this HR scope is very large. I mean, I
Correct,
can
correct.
go next into the training part or next
Uh-huh.
into the culture building part, which is also very
Correct,
important. So
correct,
when we are hiring somebody, we need to keep in mind that what kind of culture the person brings in. Is it really common with the founder's culture and values and beliefs? And
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
sometimes those are the things that can really make or break an organization.
Correct. Absolutely.
So it's
Uh,
important for a founder to maybe articulate his beliefs and values so that
correct.
those who are joining him knows what he stands for.
Right. As a follow-up of that same question, I wanted to ask in later point, but since you brought it up, I'll ask here. Now, how do I assess that, whether that is a culture fit? Or is there any some way of doing, structured way of doing it, or just, it's a hunch based on the
No,
way he
no,
presents himself?
no, it is like this. There's no hunch thing actually. You have to go into a lot of questioning. And typically what happens is that supposing a founder is there and one or two of his co-founders or senior team are there, they should be once they identify among themselves what are the 4 5 values or culture fit we must have in our organization, they will actually have to deep dive for the new
Hmm.
candidates and find out how it matches.
Hmm.
So
Right.
that's very important.
Right. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah. So do we have any other questions from the
In
participants?
I do have one.
Yes, Vikas.
In most of the cases, what happens that a startup company is there. It goes in for an investor. The investor comes on the board. An investor wants to employ his own persons into the startup. Is it advisable for the promoter to agree to it, or going by its the person's capabilities and all, whether he should say no or he should agree to it, or what sort of a compensation? Any ballpark figures in respect of that?
No, see, because what you have asked is a very typical question. Now we have to always think that the investor, because he has put his money in it, I'm sure
Yeah,
he also has the best interest of the startup in his mind.
yeah.
So if he is going to put somebody in that company, he is putting it because he believes that this person can add value to
Mm,
the organization.
mm,
But so I think it is a case to case basis. If sometimes they feel, that you come to know that he's just putting a person because this person is not getting a job elsewhere, then those things you will have to see. But then it is an investor's money also which will be at risk. So I don't think an investor will do that. You know.
yeah.
Also, when it comes to salaries, it is very tricky because what happens is anybody who is joining, uh, if for example, first of all, for startups to hire from established companies is quite a challenge because they will not be able to match the salaries of established companies. So typically they will have to, so people joining the startup will have to join for some other reasons. They cannot
Mm,
join only for the salary. They should buy into the vision. They should see the bigger picture. They should have the long term orientation. And initially only you have to tell that, sorry, your salary we cannot match. Maybe 5 years down the line, when we become a large established player, we can match with the market salary. But our compensation philosophy is that currently we are giving you partly in fixed compensation, which will really cover up your minimum requirements which are there, and then partly it will be equity. So these kind of conversations you have to have.
Also, one thing which I just wanted to ask on behalf of the startups actually, um, it is always better for a start to have a linear set of people in the
Yes.
initial stages. At what stage the startup should go on employing after it reaches a break-even point stage, or once it starts with its product manufacture of expansion of its team?
I think because in that, no, there'll be no right or wrong answers. It will be the sense of the founder and his direct team, his top team. Because one thing we have to know that employees are fixed cost,
Yeah.
and you don't want to increase fixed costs. You have to know about your cash flow. So once you know those things and you're comfortable and you do kind of the projections into the future, then only. But I don't think, because it's very, you can easily hire, but in 6 months down the line, you may have to fire also. So then that becomes very uncomfortable, because in future, you'll not be able to attract people again when they know your company as a hire and fire organization. It is better because, like I said, that there are many today options available for hiring. You can go for a what is called a gig workforce. You have a temporary workforce available. So I think organizations, if they feel that I'm going to grow very fast, they should start hiring from those places, and before they really go for full time hires.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so ma'am, another question. Actually, I was talking to one of the startups yesterday, and he was like, having a number of interns in a team is also very important, because again, that saves a lot of money, and the work is actually getting done by those interns.
Absolutely.
So, what are your thoughts? Like, is it good to have more interns rather than having full-time employees,
No,
or?
no. I would see, again, I'm saying it depends on the stage of the organization, depends on the thinking of the management. But I would say that having interns is very useful. Only thing is that some interns will need some hand holding. And because the founder and his one or two people, they are always so much stretched for work, they may find it that I wish I had a trained person, you know and
Correct.
then sometimes one or two of the senior people who join you might be people who are used to having a large team working with them of senior people. So they are
Right.
not used to really working directly with the interns. So
Yeah.
that can be a challenge. So what happens is the top management has to be very intelligent about what kind of job to give the interns. Now interns, the college graduates, there's certain things they are very good at. For example, if it is a data analysis, or
Mm-hmm.
it is some kind of a presentation to be made, or getting some data from the market, let's say market research, some
Right.
such modular kind of work you can give them. But larger things, like if you're going to tell them to do sales, you're going to put them in front of customer, they will not be able to do that. So you have to think which roles to give them.
Correct. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
So, any other questions do we have?
I have one question.
Yes.
It might be little unusual question,
Hmm.
which we are currently facing with one of the startup. See, this is a tech-based startup, and they are planning to hire some senior professor retired because he is good at that particular technology. Now, these are guys are scared whether the such a senior person would be able to listen to them, the speed, and those attitudinal issues because the age gap and other things. That is, they are not able to take any decision on that.
Yeah,
So
so they're
what are your
very,
thoughts on that?
very difficult. They have to understand for what they want the professor. Because
As
imagine a
an advisor.
professor would have never worked anybody any time in his life. He must have not
Yes,
delivered anything. So I hope
no, no,
they
no.
are not expecting any delivery. If they are expecting any advice, I think it's fine. They should keep him on as an
No,
advisor.
basically, he's a professor, is a the guide, and together they developed the technology.
Yeah,
So for that reason, as a tech support or a CTO, some sort of thing, they're trying to take him.
yeah,
That is
yeah.
okay. That's part of the delivery. But again, when it comes to attitude and listening, working with youngsters, professors do not have that experience of working with
Yes.
youngsters as a colleagues.
Yes.
So again, that might break the team.
Correct.
So this is a
That is
question
a
coming out.
challenge. See, typically they should know the person. I'm sure that they are not going by their own reference. I'm sure the startup founders know this professor. So they would know whether he works well with people. Basic things they would know at least. Because if it is an unknown entity, then it is a challenge.
Correct.
And as long as, there are certain guardrails in the contract, like you can have a 3-month contract, 6-month contract, notice period, all those guardrails should be there.
Exactly. Maybe if they come up with some kind of agreement, like deliverables and other things.
Yes,
I think that
deliverables.
Should keep them in check.
If it is not working out, you have a handshake, 1 month, whatever, some money you give, and then you close the contract like that.
Yes. Yeah, that would be appropriate.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any more questions? No, I think we are done here, ma'am.
Okay, Kapil, thank you. I know you have given me time till 3. The thing is, I tried to keep it simple. I didn't want to put it too complex kind of, presentation.
It was really very amazing session, and I hope all the participants learned a lot from it. And it was really wonderful having you at Gearbox Accelerating Startups.
Thank you,
Thank
Kapil.
you.
It has
Thank you
been
very much.
my pleasure. And thank you, Vikas, for introducing. So look forward to working with you all again soon. Thank you.
Thank you
very much, madam. Thank you, Team Arthayan. And thank you, participants. And have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.